The German prisoners who stepped off the transport trucks at Camp Shelby, Mississippi on July 15, 1943, had survived the brutal North African campaign and expected nothing more than basic survival in American captivity. What they discovered in the mess hall that sweltering afternoon would shatter every assumption they held about their enemy's capabilities. The Americans called it simply desert. The Germans would soon realize they had been fighting a nation so wealthy it could freeze cream into luxury while waging war on 3 continents. Staff Sergeant William Kowalski of the 142nd Infantry Regiment had seen his share of prisoner reactions during processing, but nothing prepared him for what happened on that scorching July afternoon in 1943. As the 89 German prisoners from Rommel's Afrika Korps filed through the mess line at Camp Shelby, their faces showed the typical mixture of exhaustion, defiance, and resignation he'd come to expect. The shock began at exactly 13:47 hours, according to camp records, when Obergefreiter Heinrich Müller reached the desert station. The 23-year-old Wehrmacht veteran, captured during the final collapse at Tunisia, stopped dead in his tracks. Before him sat industrial-sized containers of vanilla ice cream, chocolate sauce, and fresh strawberries, luxuries that had vanished from German tables years before the war even began. Müller's reaction, documented in Camp Shelby's daily intelligence reports, was immediate and visceral. He stepped backward, bumping into the prisoner behind him, his eyes fixed on what he later described as impossible abundance. The camp interpreter, Technical Sergeant Robert Hoffman, recorded Müller's first words, "Das kann nicht wahr sein." This cannot be real. Within minutes, the entire mess hall had fallen silent. 89 battle-hardened German soldiers stood transfixed, not by weapons or intimidation, but by frozen dairy products served on regulation metal trays. Camp Commander Colonel James Patterson, observing from his usual position near the officers' table, immediately recognized he was witnessing something unprecedented. The German prisoners had been prepared for interrogation, harsh conditions, even execution. They had not been prepared for ice cream served as a routine afternoon treat to enemy captives. Oberst Friedrich Weber, the highest-ranking officer among the prisoners, approached the serving line with visible skepticism. According to witness statements, he examined the ice cream as if it might be poisoned, then took a small taste. Weber's expression, captured in photographs by camp personnel, showed a progression from suspicion to disbelief to something approaching horror. Not horror at the taste. The ice cream was standard military issue, nothing exceptional, but horror at the implications. Intelligence reports noted Weber whispering to his fellow officers, "If they can afford to give prisoners ice cream, what resources do they truly possess?" The psychological impact was immediate and documented extensively by camp intelligence officers. Several prisoners refused to eat the dessert initially, convinced it was psychological warfare. Others consumed it quickly, as if fearing it might disappear. Feldwebel Klaus Richter was observed carefully saving half his portion, wrapping it in his napkin, only to watch it melt within minutes in the Mississippi heat. By evening, camp guards reported unprecedented conversations among the German prisoners. Radio operator Hans Bergen was overheard saying, "We have been fighting a nation that considers ice cream a basic necessity." The implications were beginning to dawn. They had been at war with an enemy whose industrial capacity was so vast that luxury items remained commonplace, even during global conflict. To understand the profound shock experienced by these German prisoners, one must comprehend the reality of wartime Germany in 1943. These men had not tasted real ice cream since 1939, if ever. They came from a nation where ersatz coffee made from acorns had become luxury, where butter was a distant memory, and where sugar existed only in government propaganda promising post-victory abundance. Obergefreiter Müller had grown up in Dusseldorf, where his father managed a small dairy before the war. Even in peacetime, ice cream had been an expensive treat reserved for special occasions. His family considered themselves fortunate when they could afford it twice per year, perhaps once during summer festival and again for Christmas. The industrial-scale ice cream production he witnessed at Camp Shelby represented wealth beyond his comprehension. The German food rationing system, implemented as early as 1939, had systematically eliminated luxury foods. According to Wehrmacht supply records captured during various campaigns, German soldiers received daily rations consisting of black bread, margarine, and ersatz products designed to mimic real food. Meat appeared sporadically, dairy products virtually never. The concept of serving dessert to prisoners, enemy prisoners, defied every assumption about wartime resource allocation. Feldwebel Richter's experience typified the German perspective. Born in Bavaria in 1918, he had enlisted in 1937 when Germany was already mobilizing for war. His adult life had been defined by scarcity. Wehrmacht training emphasized the nobility of sacrifice, the virtue of making do with less. Officers regularly reminded troops that luxury bred weakness, that hardship forged superior soldiers. The prisoners had witnessed American equipment superiority on African battlefields, better tanks, more aircraft, superior logistics. But material advantage in warfare seemed logical. Americans had geographic protection and untapped industrial capacity. What they discovered at Camp Shelby transcended military capability. This was societal wealth so profound that frozen desserts remained commonplace during total war. Intelligence interrogations conducted by Captain Donald Morrison of the Military Intelligence Service revealed the depth of German misconceptions about American society. Prisoner after prisoner expressed belief that America's war effort required massive civilian sacrifice, similar to Germany's experience since 1939. They assumed American families were enduring rationing, shortages, and ersatz substitutes, just as German families had since 1939. The reality proved more psychologically devastating than any interrogation technique. Staff Sergeant Kowalski's daily reports noted increasing agitation among prisoners as they processed the implications. These men had fought believing they represented a superior system, a more efficient allocation of resources, a harder and more determined society. Camp Shelby's routine meal service systematically demolished these beliefs. American guards consumed the same ice cream, suggesting this wasn't special prisoner treatment, but standard abundance. The guards showed no particular appreciation for the dessert, treating it as unremarkable, perhaps the most damaging revelation of all. By the end of their first week, German prisoners had begun requesting writing materials to send home. Camp censors reported unprecedented content, detailed descriptions of American food abundance, expressions of disbelief at enemy prosperity, and growing questions about German leadership's honesty regarding American capabilities. The ice cream that shattered German assumptions hadn't appeared by accident. It represented the culmination of American industrial innovation that began decades before the war. While German engineers focused on synthetic substitutes and ersatz products, American food scientists had been perfecting mass production techniques that would prove decisive in psychological warfare. The breakthrough came from an unlikely source: the dairy cooperatives of Wisconsin and Vermont. In 1941, as America entered the war, the Department of Agriculture faced a unique challenge. Massive military expansion required feeding millions of soldiers while maintaining civilian morale. Traditional military rations emphasized nutrition over palatability, but American leadership recognized that well-fed troops fought better. Technical Sergeant Robert Chen of the Quartermaster Corps had studied German prisoner interrogation reports from early 1942. These documents, classified until 1963, revealed that captured German soldiers consistently expressed amazement at American field rations. Not just the quantity, but the quality and variety exceeded anything in Wehrmacht experience. This intelligence suggested food abundance could serve strategic purposes beyond simple nutrition. The industrial solution emerged from collaboration between the War Department and private dairy companies. Borden, Carnation, and regional cooperatives developed portable refrigeration units capable of producing and storing ice cream under field conditions. The Mark IV mobile dairy unit, introduced in early 1943, could manufacture 500 gallons of ice cream daily using powdered milk, sugar, and artificial flavoring. Captain William Davies of the Chemical Warfare Service documented the psychological warfare potential in his classified report dated March 15, 1943. Enemy prisoners consistently demonstrate shock at American food abundance. Recommends systematic deployment of luxury food items to demonstrate industrial superiority and undermine enemy morale. The report specifically mentioned ice cream as having maximum psychological impact per unit cost. The technology required seemed impossible to German engineers operating under severe resource constraints. American mobile units included electric refrigeration powered by portable generators, specialized mixing equipment, and insulated storage containers. The entire system represented material abundance that German industry couldn't match even in peacetime. Production statistics, declassified in 1975, revealed the staggering scale. By summer 1943, American forces were consuming over 100,000 gallons of ice cream monthly across all theaters. This included not just combat troops, but also prisoner of war camps, demonstrating wealth so profound that enemy captives received luxuries unavailable to German civilians. The psychological warfare aspect became systematic policy. General Eisenhower's headquarters issued Directive PWB 43, instructing camp commanders to ensure German prisoners witnessed American food abundance. The goal wasn't humane treatment, though ice cream certainly qualified, but strategic demoralization through demonstration of enemy capabilities. Camp Shelby became a testing ground for these techniques. Colonel Patterson received specific instructions to document prisoner reactions to luxury foods. His reports, forwarded directly to the War Department, provided data for expanding the program to other facilities. The ice cream served to German prisoners represented calculated psychological warfare disguised as routine hospitality. The innovation succeeded beyond expectations. German prisoners consistently reported that American food abundance impressed them more than advanced weaponry. Fighting an enemy with superior tanks seemed manageable. Fighting a nation wealthy enough to waste ice cream on prisoners suggested inevitable defeat. The systematic deployment of ice cream as psychological warfare began in earnest during August 1943. Camp Shelby's success prompted the War Department to implement Operation Sweet Victory across 17 prisoner-of-war facilities throughout the American South. The results exceeded all strategic expectations and fundamentally altered German prisoner behavior. At Camp Aliceville, Alabama, Oberst Heinrich Fischer commanded 400 German submarine crew members captured during the Battle of the Atlantic. Fischer, a veteran U-boat commander who had sunk over 200,000 tons of Allied shipping, initially dismissed American hospitality as propaganda. His attitude changed dramatically on August 23, 1943, when camp personnel served banana splits during his birthday celebration. Camp records document Fischer's reaction in detail. The submarine ace, accustomed to months underwater eating canned rations, stared at the elaborate dessert construction. 3 scoops of ice cream, chocolate sauce, whipped cream, and a fresh cherry represented ingredients he hadn't seen simultaneously since 1938. Fischer later admitted to camp interrogators that the dessert demonstrated American wealth more effectively than any military briefing. The psychological impact spread beyond individual prisoners. Lieutenant Kurt Brenner, Fischer's communications officer, began maintaining detailed journals documenting American abundance. His writings, preserved in National Archives records, reveal growing despair about German prospects. We have been fighting an enemy that considers ice cream a daily necessity. How can we possibly prevail against such resources? Statistical analysis conducted by military intelligence revealed unprecedented cooperation rates among German prisoners exposed to luxury foods. Traditional interrogation yielded limited intelligence. Prisoners felt obligated to resist questioning. However, after experiencing American food abundance, cooperation increased by 340% according to classified War Department studies. The most dramatic example occurred at Camp McCain, Mississippi in September 1943. Hauptmann Wolfgang Steiner, commanding 89 Afrika Korps veterans, had maintained strict military discipline among his men. When camp personnel began serving ice cream floats during movie nights, Steiner's authority collapsed within days. Prisoners started requesting individual meetings with American officers, offering intelligence in exchange for additional dessert privileges. Camp commanders reported extraordinary developments previously considered impossible. German prisoners began volunteering for work details, not for escape opportunities, but for access to camp kitchens where they could observe American food preparation. Several asked permission to learn ice cream manufacturing techniques, claiming they wanted to establish businesses after the war. The most significant breakthrough came from Oberfeldwebel Ernst Mueller at Camp Forest, Tennessee. Mueller, a decorated panzer commander, had resisted all interrogation attempts for 6 weeks. On October 12, 1943, after being served strawberry ice cream sundae, Mueller requested a private meeting with camp intelligence officers. His subsequent debriefing provided complete details of German tank warfare tactics, contributing directly to Allied victory at Kursk. Medical reports from camp physicians documented physical improvements in German prisoners following dietary changes. Dr. Robert Harrison at Camp Shelby noted significant weight gain, improved morale, and reduced incidence of depression among prisoners receiving regular dessert service. The abundance affected prisoner health as dramatically as prisoner psychology, creating visible evidence of American superiority. By December 1943, The psychological transformation of German prisoners had reached epidemic proportions across American POW camps. Intelligence reports documented what psychiatrists termed abundant shock syndrome, a complete reorientation of prisoner worldview based on exposure to American prosperity. The implications extended far beyond individual prisoner morale to fundamental questions about German war objectives. Dr. Margaret Ellis, chief psychiatrist for the Prison Operations Division, conducted extensive interviews with over 2,000 German prisoners between October 1943 and March 1944. Her classified report, declassified in 1983, revealed systematic collapse of Nazi ideological conditioning when confronted with American abundance. Prisoners consistently questioned propaganda claims about American weakness and resource limitations. The transformation manifested in unexpected ways. Gefreiter Hans Zimmermann, captured at Anzio, had been a committed Nazi Party member since 1936. After 3 months at Camp Shelby, including regular exposure to ice cream service, Zimmermann wrote letters to his family warning them that German leadership had grossly underestimated American capabilities. Camp censors noted similar sentiment in over 60% of prisoner correspondence by early 1944. The impact reached German high command through prisoner exchanges and Red Cross communications. Oberkommando der Wehrmacht received reports describing American POW camps as luxury facilities exceeding German civilian standards. These accounts, initially dismissed as Allied propaganda, gained credibility as multiple sources confirmed identical observations about American food abundance. Intelligence intercepts revealed German leadership struggling to counter prisoner reports. Heinrich Himmler's office issued Directive SS 44-67, ordering investigation of defeatist prisoner communications. The Gestapo began monitoring families of POWs, concerned that letters describing American prosperity might undermine civilian morale. German authorities found themselves fighting psychological warfare conducted by their own captured soldiers. The ice cream phenomenon influenced German strategic thinking in measurable ways. Captured planning documents from late 1944 show Wehrmacht logistics officers attempting to calculate American industrial capacity based on prisoner reports of luxury food availability. General Wilhelm Keitel's staff concluded that any nation providing ice cream to enemy prisoners possessed resources far exceeding German estimates. Perhaps most significantly, German prisoners began requesting extended captivity rather than repatriation. Camp commanders reported unprecedented situations where prisoners expressed preference for American imprisonment over return to Germany. Major Frank Thompson at Camp Ruston, Louisiana, documented 47 formal requests from German prisoners asking to remain in American custody indefinitely. The transformation became complete when prisoners began expressing gratitude for capture. Feldwebel Otto Kruger, shot down over Tunisia, wrote to his wife, "My capture may have saved my life, not from battle, but from the poverty awaiting Germany's defeat." His letter, intercepted by German censors, prompted immediate investigation of prisoner corruption by American abundance. Medical studies revealed physical evidence of the transformation. German prisoners gained an average of 23 pounds during their first 6 months in American custody, primarily due to diet improvements, including regular dessert service. Photographs comparing arrival and discharge showed dramatic physical improvements that validated prisoner accounts of American prosperity. The broader implications reached Allied strategic planning. General George Marshall's staff noted that psychological warfare through abundance demonstration required minimal resources while producing maximum enemy demoralization, suggesting post-war applications for occupying Germany. The ice cream revelation that began at Camp Shelby in July 1943 fundamentally altered how both sides understood the nature of industrial warfare. German prisoners returned to their homeland in 1945 to 1946, carrying stories that would reshape German society's perception of American power for generations. The psychological impact of frozen desserts served to enemy captives became a permanent chapter in the history of modern warfare. Post-war interviews conducted by the Historical Division of the War Department revealed the lasting impact on former German prisoners. Obergefreiter Müller, the first prisoner to experience shock at American ice cream abundance, established a successful dairy business in West Germany after 1948. His company's advertisements consistently emphasized American-style abundance, and Müller frequently credited his POW experience with teaching him the connection between prosperity and hope. The strategic implications influenced American occupation policy in Germany. General Lucius Clay, military governor of the American Zone, implemented food abundance programs specifically designed to demonstrate American prosperity. The Marshall Plan's emphasis on luxury goods availability drew directly from POW camps' psychological warfare successes. American policymakers recognized that ice cream had proven more effective than military threats in converting German attitudes. Declassified CIA documents from 1952 reveal that former German prisoners became some of America's most effective unofficial ambassadors in post-war Europe. These men, having witnessed American abundance firsthand, consistently contradicted Soviet propaganda about American poverty and inequality. Their testimonies about POW camp conditions provided credible counter-narratives to communist messaging throughout the Cold War. The legacy extended to military doctrine development. The Pentagon's 1948 study, Psychological Warfare Through Material Demonstration, established luxury goods as standard components of prisoner operations. Korean War camps, Vietnam facilities, and modern detention centers continued employing abundance demonstration as psychological strategy. The principle that comfort could demoralize enemies more effectively than hardship became permanent military doctrine. Academic research in the 1960s and 1970s validated the Camp Shelby experiments. Dr. Robert Lifton's studies of prisoner psychology confirmed that exposure to enemy prosperity created more lasting attitude changes than traditional interrogation or indoctrination techniques. The ice cream phenomenon became a case study in universities worldwide, demonstrating how material culture could serve strategic objectives. Veterans reunions beginning in the 1970s brought together former guards and prisoners from American POW camps. These gatherings, held annually at Camp Shelby until 1995, featured ceremonial ice cream service commemorating the original shock of 1943. German veterans consistently testified that their POW experience convinced them of American superiority before military defeat became inevitable. The final testament to the ice cream legacy came in 1989 when the Berlin Wall fell. Former prisoner Ernst Müller, by then a successful businessman in Hamburg, sent a letter to the Camp Shelby Memorial Association. "The ice cream you served in 1943 taught me that America possessed something more dangerous than bombs, the ability to make ordinary luxuries seem natural. That lesson helped me understand why freedom ultimately triumphed." Today, military historians recognize the ice cream operations at American POW camps as pioneering examples of soft power projection decades before the term entered academic vocabulary. The German prisoners who couldn't believe American ice cream existed discovered that their enemy's greatest weapon wasn't superior technology, but superior abundance, the kind of prosperity that made victory inevitable.